Get ready for an insightful journey as we dive into the world of comedy, entertainment, and community. I am Farida, your friend, host, or nerdier sister who's always misunderstood with the slow dive. Today, I'm thrilled to interview the brilliant, dynamic, talented, and beautiful Mona Shaikh. Hello, Mona.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate this.
Now, before we get into our interview, I'm going to share a little bit about Mona. And I'm going to share a little bit because she's got some amazing things that she's done. And we're going to go to her website. But Mona Shaikh is a stand up comedian, host, and producer of Minority Reports. She was most recently featured on The Hollywood Reporter, CNN, MSNBC, and opened for Jay Leno. She's also emceed the Women's March in San Francisco in January of 2019 and made history by being the first South Asian Middle Eastern female comedian to perform in front of 60,000 people. She's been featured in Forbes, LA Times, Newsweek, The Guardian, LA Weekly, New York Post, Huffington Post, Washington Post, and BBC. Needless to say, she's incredibly talented. Mona has also headlined in Dubai, Portugal, as well as London, in addition to being seen all around LA at major comedy clubs as the Comedy Store, the Stand Up Comedy Club, Flappers Comedy Club, the Laugh Factory, Ice House Pasadena, Hollywood Improv, and many more. She hosted the Hollywood Improv for Comedy Juice Night with Dane Cook. She became the first Pakistani female comedian to be selected for Laugh Factory's Funniest Person in the World competition and made history by becoming the first Pakistani female comedian to headline Hollywood Improv. And that's just a little bit about Mona. So, welcome.
Farida, thank you very much. I'm feeling really good. That intro it sounded almost as if I've been paying you in empanadas. And you were like, Mona, I'm going to give you a really long intro because you've been serving me delicious empanadas.
I do like empanadas, but no, it's true. I mean, first of all, I'm just so happy you're here. I have been following your career, and I personally see you as a trailblazer and a pioneer in a very specific niche, especially as a South Asian woman, as a fellow South Asian woman. You're doing these incredible things. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's enough. We're gonna get into your story, but to start with our first segment, Mona, what does home feel like? Where is home? Where is family?
I'll tell you like a little bit of a backstory, how I view home and what feels like home to me. I was born and partially raised in Pakistan until I was 15. So I moved from Karachi when I was 15 years old. And I think what happens to a lot of immigrant kids like myself when you're born in another country and then you move to the US at like that kind of very delicate age, which my parents were like, she'll be fine, 15, send her. She'll figure it out. And I think what happens to immigrant kids, whether you're born here or you're born overseas and then come here, is that you kind of go through this identity crisis. And I went through identity crisis for 10 years where I did not know where I belonged, that if I went to Pakistan, I wasn't Pakistani enough. And then when it came to America, I wasn't American enough. So then it's just like, well, where do I really belong? What is my identity? Who am I really? Besides the labels that I kind of grew up with and the labels that were given to me. And it took me a long time. It took me like well over a decade to really kind of figure out, what home really means to me. Also, I grew up in a very chaotic home. There was a lot of chaos in our house. My parents were people who were, running in opposite directions. They were just people that should have just never got married, in my opinion. And I think when you grow up in so much kind of chaos and this kind of disconnected, disjointed family, and then you come to the US and then you're like, wow, so now I'm disjointed again, where I'm disconnected again. So before I had some form of identity, now I have kind of no identity or a confusing identity. So I kind of made a choice and kind of went through this very kind of dark time and this spiritual journey. And I figured out that home was where I will be. Wherever I am, that is home to me. If I am, whatever, if I'm performing on a cruise ship for 2 weeks, then that's home to me. And I think home has taken a much different meaning for me. So the home is what I make of it. That's home.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing so much about that. Home is what you make of it, where you are. And currently you're in Los Angeles. So geographically, you're in Southern California.
That's correct. And whenever I travel, that is home to me for that period of time. You know what I'm saying? Like, who knows where life would take me in the next 5 to 10 years. And, LA may not be my home. It may very well shift and may very well be another state or maybe another country. I don't know. But I think for me, a home is being grounded in yourself and grounded in myself to be like, wherever I go, I take myself, and that's home.
Mona, I have to ask you a question. Do you have siblings or like family?
I do. Yeah. I have 4 older brothers. I'm the youngest and the only girl in the family. Yeah. And I grew up as a tomboy, as you would imagine when you grew up with boys. The only person in our family who was allowed to be a girl and be delicate was my mother. Everybody else had to suck it up, be a boy, and I was one of the boys.
How has that like served you though in your career? Because you're in such a challenging, not a challenging space for you, but like, how as a comedian for women, I mean, you can tell us, like, has that early childhood experience helped you in any way in your comedy career?
Well, the trauma has definitely helped. So the trauma has definitely kind of played a role in, developing that kind of comedic side. Just on a kind of side note, I've been listening to Tim Fletcher recently. He's this brilliant therapist out of Canada, and he's just so brilliant. He talks about complex trauma. He talks about what kind of different personalities come out of when you come out of chaotic or traumatized homes. And one of the children that he describes is the comedian. He's like, one of the kids becomes, and I laughed so hard when I heard that. And I was like, I literally made my trauma my entire career. Like, that's what I did. And I didn't even know that's what I was doing, which is insane to me. So I feel like when you grow up with boys, you do grow up with a level of toughness. I think when you grow up with girls, there's also a certain mindset. When you grow up with sisters, I've met girls who grew up with sisters, and I have nothing against them. I just feel like it's like just too much estrogen for me, and I don't know what to do with all that, because I grew up with boys, and boys are very direct, and they're like, if I don't like you, you get punched in the face, and I punch you back, and then whoever wins, and then we sort it out, and then we go about our ways. Girls handle things a lot differently. So I think for the longest time, I've handled things like, from a very masculine side of me. So has it helped me? Yeah. I mean, before I got into stand-up, I used to work on the trading floor in New York City. I kind of went through that big transition. So at the age of 22, I'm one of the 4 women that works on the trading floor in New York City for Citibank. And, I mean, that kind of toughness plays out. And that was one of the first things they asked me during the interview. They were like, how tough are you? I said, I have 4 older brothers. They're like, you're hired.
Yeah.
And then my father was a very alpha male also. So it has helped me. And then, of course, then you step into stand-up comedy, and it's a very male-dominated business. And it's there is a ton of harassment. It's brutal. Stand-up comedy world is, tough. It's a tough life. And I think all of those kind of adversities and all of those kind of traumas that I grew up with have helped me with my career, I guess.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to ask you, when did you first realize comedy was going to be a way to go for you? Like, when did you decide, you know what, I'm going to give comedy a shot? Like, walk us through that. How did that come about? How did you make that transition?
So 2008, the market crashes and nobody can find a job. Times are rough. I'm doing whatever odd jobs I can because I can't land a job to save my life. And then eventually end up getting a job at Morgan Stanley. And one of my coworkers, Lena Klebanov, who now still resides on Long Island, my girl Lena and I became really good friends. And she goes, Mons, you should do stand-up. And I was like, dude, I can't do stand-up. She's like, Mona, you always are cracking jokes. You're so good at storytelling. You should do comedy. And I said, I don't think I can do that. And she was like, well, do you write stuff? And I said, yeah, I write stuff all the time. And she goes, okay. And she's like, you have some stage experience? I said, I do. She's like, well, that's it then. You should try your hand at stand-up. So somehow madness, I don't know what compelled me to take her advice. And I went and did my first open mic at this comedy club in the meatpacking district called Comics, which has since been shut down thanks to my comedy. But I went and did my first open mic, and I didn't realize that the booker was watching me while I was doing my first open mic. And Farida, and then get this, Mona brought her mom with her.
Oh my gosh.
Pakistani Muslim mother, because that's what genius people do. They bring their parents to be like, look what your traumas have brought me to, mother. And now I will get up on stage and I will speak of my traumas. And yeah, that's kind of how I kind of fell into stand up. It was just like,
Yeah.
honestly, it was going to be like a one off thing. I was like, oh, I'll just go do it. And if I
Mhm.
suck, then I'm like not going to do it. Like, you know.
I love that. Mona, so you've said this, like you've used your trauma in your comedy, but how has your comedy healed you while storytelling? Has
You
it?
know, comedy is cheaper than therapy, man. It's
Yeah.
cheaper than therapy. Comedy has healed me a great deal. I think I was already doing the work, so I was already
Mhm.
going to therapy, so that helped me a great deal. Comedy is what it does is that it brings a lot of your insecurities to surface. So you're kind of holding the mirror up to nature for yourself, right? Because you cannot hold the mirror up to nature for other people unless you hold it for yourself first. So it really makes you kind of confront your demons and kind of confront things about yourself. At least that's what it did for me. Not that my thing applies to everyone, but that's what
Mhm.
it did for me. But it also makes you incredibly insecure. You know, you're getting up on stage and you're making yourself vulnerable. You're not like a band, right? You're not like a lead singer of a band where the band can like kind of fill in the gaps of where you're sucking. You're a one band, one person show, baby. Like you get up there, it's live, it's real. You suck, you suck. If you don't suck, you don't suck. Like that's kind of how comedy is. I mean, it's very raw like that. But I think comedy has healed me. I'll tell you, comedy has healed me so much and has helped me so much that now I don't have so much the itch to get up on stage like the way I used to. That's how much it's healed me.
That is fascinating.
That's how much it's healed me.
Wow. Okay, you said just a little bit a while ago about your mom. You brought your mom to your first show. How has it been received by your mom? How does she understand, or is she supportive of your comedy career? Or
You know the answer, Farida. No, you
no,
know
I
what?
don't know. I don't know.
I
I know
think
I know for certain South Asian families, they don't understand entertainment, they don't understand film, they don't understand comedy. It's just
yes.
such a different space. But if you feel like sharing, of course.
No, no. I mean, look, my mom did not understand it for the
Mhm,
longest time, right? I mean, like a lot of South Asian parents, also because it's like a new thing. Like
mhm.
you're gonna make a living and telling jokes. Like who's gonna pay you? Who? What is this? You know that doesn't even make any sense. Some matchmaker lady called my mom up at the time and was just like, "I heard your daughter is adopted," and my mom was like, my daughter is not a doctor. She is a comedian. She's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, she like tells jokes on stage. It was like people pay her to tell jokes. And my mom was like, yeah. And I think even my mom was like, this is an awkward conversation. You know, it was like this weird thing. I yeah, I feel like comedy like with my mom, I think it took her a little bit. I think what happens to a lot of South Asian parents is that they need to see external validation. There has to be external validation, whether it's in the form of income, it's in the form of news clippings, it's in the form of other people talking about you. That's when it becomes real. Until then, it's a hobby.
Oh my God, Mona, that resonates with me so heavily. I 100% feel that on every level because it's so true. It's so true. But I mean, now, like, look at you. Like, I mean, you are like, I consider you to be incredibly successful. You're doing amazing things and you're in
Oh,
this unique
very proud of
space.
you, Frida.
So, no, but it's true. And I think you should receive it because I think that's one of the things, too. Like, because in our spaces, I'm not a comedian by any means, but I do understand being in a weird industry that it's kind of just like on the fringe and people don't know exactly, like you said, they need validation, some kind of box they can check off. So I think the fearlessness to go into that, what fuels that? Like what fueled it when you were starting out before you had all these headlines and these clippings and all this stuff, that's all this amazing things you're doing now, like in the interim when you were building up to that, what was fueling you? Like, what was your motivation to keep going?
I think I had to prove something to myself. I think I also had to prove something to my parents. I wanted them to know that I wasn't a loser,
Yeah.
and I think I had to let myself know that I wasn't a loser. And I think, I'm a college dropout. Like I'm completely kind of self-taught in every aspect of my life. So I think for me, not that I ever was like, oh my God, I should have went to college. Like I was never cut out for college, and I just my brain just doesn't work that way. So it wasn't about that. I think what it was about was that I I I just wanted to really kind of prove it to them and then prove it to myself that I was capable of kind of doing these things. And I think I always kind of saw myself, and I had a vision of myself of how, like, the things that I wanted to do. I think when I moved here as a teenager, I think there was a thing that went in my head where it was like, I'm in the land of freedom, and if I do not utilize these opportunities and this access, I would be the dumbest person on the planet to have thrown away this lottery ticket that God gave me, and not to pursue and to do actually injustice to myself, to lie to myself, to not go after my dreams the way I have envisioned it because of fear or because of familial pressures or cultural pressures, that own self be true. That's exactly what I was doing.
I mean, your journey, and I know that word's used a lot. It's incredible and empowering, I think. What is the advice you would give someone who's not seeing the returns on their hard work right away, or is wanting to get into something like this, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's a long game?
First of all, there are much better ways to make a living. So if you had even a few hugs from your parents, and they told you maybe sometimes that they love you, there's no reason why you should be doing this career. I think a lot of people who do enter comedy and even the artist world, I mean, I would say primarily all of Hollywood is kind of based on people who come from some form of broken homes, that you come from some kind of chaos or trauma or something that makes you go, well, if I'm just in the limelight, or if I just get that spotlight, I will be able to recover all the love I never got. I'll be able to get that attention I never got. I'll be able to not be ignored because somehow that I'll be lovable. Somehow I would be enough. And I think a lot of people come to this industry with that intention, including myself. Like, I'm not like above it, but I think that's what it was, so much of it. And I give advice like, you only pursue comedy because you need to, not because you have to. If you have to, then you shouldn't do it. There's a lot better things you can do with your life, but you should do it because you have this need. You have a need to say something. You have a need to get up on stage and say your thoughts, and hopefully nobody's gonna walk up on stage and punch you, like, or slap you, which has been another weird thing comedians have been facing.
Oh
But
yeah.
I just feel like, look, if my younger self, I think I would shock my younger self if my younger self got to know that I pursued this, because stand-up comedy was never part of the plan. Acting was maybe part of the plan, but stand-up comedy was never part of the plan. Stand-up comedy kind of came out of left field for me. That was never really part
Wow.
of the plan. So yeah, I mean, look, I say better ways to make a living, but if you really do need to pursue it, then just go for it, right? I mean, how many more lifetimes are you going to get? I mean, maybe you'll come back as a cat, but this time you're a human. So, put those traumas to work. That's what I say.
Yeah, it seems like you have really alchemized your adversity into wins for yourself, Mona. And you were saying earlier that now that you're healing more, you don't want to do as much comedy, or or what other areas of entertainment or storytelling do you see yourself in, if besides comedy?
I mean, I also have another company that I launched a year and a half ago called Web3 is a Joke, and we do comedy roles in the Web3 and crypto space. So that's been, knock on wood, been doing really well. So I think I'm more and more, I see more myself as a producer and an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
That's kind of the category that and being a stand-up comic, having this kind of finance background, all of that really contributes and really helps, with my future endeavors and my current endeavors with what I'm doing. So yeah, that's kind of how I see myself. I just find the business of comedy to be incredibly fucked up. The business of comedy is fucked. The gatekeepers are fucked up, okay? And I would go as far to say that Hollywood is the same, right? So the business structure is failing. I was having a conversation this week with an executive who's a comedy executive, and she told me, she was just like, the nexus is gone. It's gone. Like, people are just kind of feeling like they're drowning. You go on TikTok and you see all these showrunners and these producers talking about they can't find work. So what's happening? So that old structure of Hollywood where there was this chain of command and people at the top are just making all the money and people in the middle maybe making some decent living and the people at the bottom are just starving, that's not working anymore. It's just not, right? That structure needs to change entirely. And that applies to comedy as well, where it's feast or famine. It shouldn't have to be this way. It literally shouldn't have to be this way. There are plenty of talent. There's enough money. Bob Iger doesn't need a $24 million fucking bonus while he's laying off people at ESPN. You know what I'm saying? Because ESPN is owned by Disney, right? That's just fucked up. Like, how big does your fucking yacht gotta be, Bob?
Right.
Like, you're more concerned, like all these executives up top. And my beef is not just with Bob. My beef is with this mentality where people, these gatekeepers and these executives feel like, hey, we should just consume. It's like, you've never written a story in your life. You never told a joke in your life. How do you feel so entitled to have a $24 million bonus while the rest of us who are actually doing the work are fucking getting pittance?
Yeah. I think it comes down to, like, there's not a respect, in my opinion, for the arts, for the storytellers, the writers, the creators, the producers.
And whose fault is that?
I would say it's a combination of ourselves and society, because we don't reward.
You don't think the gatekeepers are to be blamed for that?
Oh, no, I do. But I also think that what I think was evident with the writer's strike, and this is the second time that happened in history, is that people should realize that when the pandemic happened, what was everybody doing? They were watching Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. Who are the people behind this? It's the creators like yourself, the writers, the producers. I think it's both. I think it's systemic, and I also think it's up to us. We have respect, but for us to fight more like a union to get more power and equity in the industry. And I think that's going to take a whole lot of people. But one of the challenges I feel, Mona, at least at my level, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, as an independent producer, my budgets are incredibly small. They're not in Netflix budgets, is that the cost of living and sustaining a career and being near the hub, whether now it's,
That's
Georgia
right.
or that, is impossible to sustain that. And now it's become like a medium that if you are a trust fund baby, or if you have extra income or some padding, that you can buy that time to build those relationships, but to sustain a career, to build that now, I feel like is even more challenging. And
That's correct. And I think it's only going to get worse. I don't think it's getting any better. I personally, and I will speak definitely from the comedy point of view, and I'll definitely, prefer that because, the comedy world is also part of Hollywood. I think the gatekeepers have to go. I think the gatekeepers have ran their time. I think we've had enough of them. I think they just need to go at this point. They just need to fuck off at this point, where comedians and artists can actually, put an amount on what is it that they deserve, that they should get paid. I don't need a gatekeeper to give me blessing that I am good enough to get up on stage. I have proven it to myself plenty of time by headlining shows, busting my ass, putting out work, that I am good enough. I have done it many times. The fact that some gatekeeper feels like they have to give me the blessing to be funny. Well, you're not the gatekeeper. You know who's the true gatekeeper? The people who spend the money to come see you. Mm-hmm. They are the true gatekeepers. If they don't like you, they're not going to spend their hard-earned money. That's it. There's no, so I don't know this. So I just feel like the entire structure needs to change. It's just not working. It doesn't work anymore. I don't think it should be, you should be in a place where you're just constantly getting pittance. I'm a SAG-AFTRA member. They sent me an email saying your dues are you have to pay your dues. And I said, contact George Clooney. You pay these people in your top 1%, right? They make all the money, right? What are you asking me for? I haven't gotten a fucking SAG gig in like 3 years. What are you asking me for money for? Go ask them. I paid $4,000 to join your fucking union.
Wow. Incredible. But I mean, okay, so if the audience is the indicators of someone's success and quote the feedback for us in this industry, I mean, the YouTube creators and the TikTok creators are doing pretty well, and they're parlaying into that.
TikTok pays very little to their creators. They don't pay a lot because their mentality is, oh, well, we got you all the viewership and the on our algorithm got you this. Now you can go and get brand deals. So we don't really have to pay you. They had a $5 billion fund that we're going to pay their creators, and they yanked on that and then not pay their content creators. So, all these platforms, by the way, not just TikTok, not picking on TikTok, Meta, YouTube, any of these guys, right? They are screwing people and content creators and comedians over and over again. Like, how do they decide what the CPM is? They pay you based on how many times the ad has been seen. So, for instance, I got a video recently that got like 100,000 views, and then YouTube told me that I had made $2.47 on it. I said, how did you figure that out? How did you exactly calculate that? Right? Because that's bullshit. So when Snoop Dogg was at this very big crypto conference last year called Consensus, and Consensus is one of the biggest crypto conferences. It just took place about a month or so ago, and he's up there, and he's a big investor in Bitcoin, a big investor in NFTs and blockchain, and he's like, I got 1 billion streams on Spotify, he said, and he said, do you know how big my check was? And people are like, well, it must be in the millions. And he was like, $45,000. That's what Spotify paid me.
Wow.
This is
nothing.
Snoop Dogg.
It's nothing.
So if Snoop Dogg is getting screwed, Farida, you and I can kiss it goodbye.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. So I want to get into your other stuff because you're doing amazing things, but I want to ask before we move on to the next segment, what do we do? I mean, how do we get rid of gatekeepers, especially someone like,
learn about blockchain.
Okay.
Learn about blockchain. I'm not even kidding. Like, okay. Web3 is the future. Right now we're in Web2. And what's happening in Web2 is that all the corporations, right, from your FANG, as they call them, your Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, they all own your data. So when you own data, that means you're God. You hold all the keys and the power. So when you go on YouTube or you go on your Instagram and you post something and they say, hey, you violated our guidelines, they never fucking tell you what you violated. They just tell you got violated guidelines. And sorry, we're going to ban your account. No, all those fans that you built, you have no access to that fan base. None. If they decide to ban your account, all those fans are gone. You do not have access to that, right? Web3 is the opposite. Web3 is about data ownership. You get to own your own data. AI is going to become a big part of the conversation because of likeness. People, they have to pass legislation that nobody else can own your likeness besides yourself. That's you, that's me, that's everybody. And that conversation is coming, by the way. It's around the corner. It's not that far. So all these things, like, you have to be, if you're owning all your own data and all your own fan base, then the platforms have to come to you, not the other way around, because you hold the data. So I think there's a big shift happening right now that I'm very, very excited about. That's why I'm a big advocate of blockchain. I'm a big advocate of Web3. And that's why I've started this company. Thank God, the reaction has been phenomenal because of what we're building, and we're bridging the gap between the Web3 world and the crypto world and comedy. And it's about educating people to be like, Web3 is good for you. Crypto is good for you. You may not understand it yet, but please know that the future is around the corner, and it is good for you because your data, your money. So if Farida has 100,000 followers on wherever, right, and you decide to have this episode be released, and you're like, I want to get paid $1 per listenership or per dollar. So however many times you get to decide that amount, not YouTube, not Meta, not TikTok. You get to decide that.
So so Web3 and the future of comedy and entertainment, Web3 is a joke. You mentioned that's your company, Web3 is a joke, right? And one of your companies. And you were talking about FANG. How is that challenging the Web3 space and the creator space and the Web3? Like, I mean, what do you feel like you'll get pushback? Because I'm not really too familiar, but I'm here. I'm interested and intrigued, and I definitely am someone that wants to be prepared for if there is this like seismic shift that we're all just going to be like, you know, lost. Right now, I think we've just been riding the wave and been hopeful. But honestly, I really don't know what's happening. But in your opinion, since you're obviously in this space, Mona, what do you think? What kind of pushback do you think there's a possibility of a pushback from FANG towards like democratizing our equity in our creator space using Web3, like you're saying? Or how would I mean? I don't even know if that makes sense, but
No, what they're trying to do right now is Meta and Google, they're trying to go and get in the content business. That's what they're trying to do. So, essentially they're just trying to get ahead of the curve and be like, hey, listen, studios are going to change. That whole dynamic's going to change very, very rapidly. Multiplexes are going to disappear. The kind of AI and the kind of technology that's coming up, you're not going to have to spend $200 for a family of four to go watch a movie on the big screen. I'm sure, I think there's a seismic change coming, and it is here, whether you believe it or not. But I feel like, with everything that's happening, I think the people just don't understand the benefits. People, I think, especially artists, like Web3 is for artists. Web3 is for people like yourself, right? You don't have to get like chump change. You can get whatever funding that you wish to get if you're in the right, in the right community, because Web3 is all about community. That's what they're about.
And like, this is very new to me, and I'm learning so much from you, Mona, because you're, like I said, you're an intrepid pioneer in this space. Tell me, like, how does one get into Web3 as an independent creator, producer? If you had to like start, like, what would be the first steps to secure their spot? If you think that this whole thing is going to come to an end, possibly, how do we get into that?
I think there's going to be this shift, and the shift has already begun. I don't know if you've seen a video of this. CAA has their own AI studios. Okay.
No, I did not know that.
CAA has their own AI studio now, and they're
CAA, Creative Artist Agency.
Yeah.
They have an AI studio. I had no idea. That is new to me.
Mm-hmm. So they're basically essentially bringing in artists or whatever, getting their likeness, and they're just going to do whatever they want with it. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff is happening very, very quietly. Okay. And if you're not in this space and if you're not paying attention, a lot of people are about to lose their jobs and they're going to lose their living. So you have to pay attention to what's about to happen. AI is coming for a lot of people's salaries, a lot. And you have to then figure out, like, okay, well, if AI is coming for my salary, what can I upgrade, or what can I learn, and what can I educate myself? So to answer your question, the first thing I would do, like, look, Web3 to me encompasses AI, metaverse, NFTs, crypto. That's what it encompasses for me. So, the first thing is about education. You have to understand how the technology even works. So, there's plenty of videos you can go and learn. There's Crypto Wendy O, who teaches a great deal. She's a homie. She's great people. Altcoin Daily, that's another amazing channel that teaches you a great deal about crypto and what's happening in the altcoin space. Go and just Google on YouTube, what is blockchain? How does blockchain play a role in film and TV? Blockchain is essentially a digital ledger, and you're talking about transparency, where when YouTube says that they're going to pay you 5 cents on, for one view or 5 views or 50 views, right? You can't do that with blockchain. They would have to show that, off of your views, off of maybe two videos that got 100,000 each, they pulled in, $50,000 while they cut you a $2.50 check. They would have to show that. So I don't know if you know who RFK Jr. is. He's running for the presidency.
Yes.
RFK Jr. was just talking about that. He was talking about, let's put the federal spending budget on the blockchain. And both Democrats and Republicans freaked the fuck out. Of course they don't want that. They don't want you to see how they're spending our money. If you put it on the blockchain, everybody can see it. And the thing about digital ledger is that you can't adjust it. Once it goes up, it goes up. That's it. You cannot fix it. There are no edits to this. You can't like just go and erase it and like fudge with it. That's not how this works.
I think this is really eye-opening, Mona, and I really appreciate it because you're obviously in this space and you're very forthright and educating a lot on this topic. And I personally feel like, yeah, this is a scary time for creators, and I appreciate the knowledge sharing, especially because personally I'm not very familiar with Web3, and I got into early during the pandemic when NFTs were starting out and everybody was like creating a NFT, and that was really cool to me. And then it kind of slowed down, but I never really got into blockchain or Web3, and to be honest, I didn't really quite understand it. And I think especially, and I'm going to speak just to my experience, the last 3 years, especially after the pandemic in the independent producing world here in Los Angeles and maybe elsewhere too, I haven't met a lot of people that are, I think not until the writer's strike did people get a little scared. And now with AI, but the last 3 years, we've just been holding our breath, hoping that something will shift. And then all these acquisitions and mergers and layoffs. And I think this year, when the games industry started losing people, the animation industry started losing people.
Yep.
Now it's getting real. And now like even voiceover, like just common software that I have been using for years, they're like, well, text to voice, you can do this. And it's just coming out. And it's only been 18 months since AI came on the public sphere. Yep. So this is really, I think it's kind of a wake-up call, Mona. You speaking the truth here. It's a little, I have to say, I'm shocked, but I'm also like, I don't know where to dive in, and how to apply.
Let me ask you, would you rather be uncomfortable now and go out there and learn about it and get educated and then take the proper measures and steps to be able to, prevent yourself from being sideswiped or being taken, by surprise? Or would you just rather wait and hope and keep your fingers crossed and hope that something good is going to come? I would use the first. I would use, the
100%. No. I mean, you're, like I said, you're just spitting truth here. It's true. Like, I mean, you have to lean into this and be proactive. But just because we're having this conversation and there's just so much, I mean, you're so brilliant. And I mean, I could probably pick your brain, but I'm not going to take up too much of your time. What would that mean, like, about IP? Like, for example, like, a lot of us are creative producers. We have ideas, we adapt them, we create log lines. Yep. What is that going to look like?
You're going to put it on the blockchain. You're going to put it on the blockchain. That's what's going to happen. So rather than you going and paying rather than paying Writers Guild or whatever to go and, register your content, I think blockchain is going to play a significant role in this, where, I don't even know, it might even put Writers Guild a little bit out of business in that sense, because why would I pay $20 to register a script when I can just go and put on the blockchain and it verifies that I'm the first one who put it up there?
But how do we develop those ideas in the blockchain and bring it? Obviously, okay, for example, distribution, right? Like, so you have your own website, you have your own distribution channel. So do you think if we're all individually owning our own spaces, we can pull audience into that? Because one of the things that was a convenience, the catalog aspect of like streamers and cable channels was like the catalog of shows within a certain genre or space. How would that look like in the future, do you think, since we're talking about that?
I think there are some brilliant people out there right now coming up with some amazing apps and amazing websites that are going to be able to accommodate that and that are going to rival the current platforms that are not really providing. And and don't get me wrong, the current platforms are, they're hustling, man. They are pedaling real fast because they got to change with the times. They're, because they know that there are rival platforms that are being built. Google is definitely very much, I mean, they're putting a lot of money. Look at Google released Gemini, Meta.ai is a new thing. I mean, they're all hustling. They know that it's coming. And they gotta figure it out, or they're gonna drown. I mean, Mark Cuban came out and said this, and he was like, if you're in business and you have not incorporated AI in your business, you are not gonna exist. Period. This is no ifs or buts about it. It's not like a maybe. it's a guarantee you will not exist. So you better find a way to incorporate and get with the program. Like, you have to figure a way out to go and educate yourself. I mean, I got invited to this AI event in Santa Monica, and I met this gentleman. He has a company called Story.ai, if I'm not mistaken, and that's what they're doing. These filmmakers, they come up with their storylines, and then they have AI that literally generates their storyboard for them, and how the camera angle is going to be, and it's pretty fascinating. He showed it to me. It was amazing. So I think you'll see more and more of that. I think a lot of the smaller studios are going to end up rising. You're going to see a lot more individuals who are going to rise up and who are going to have their own fan base that they're going to be charging. I think even the bigger studios know that they're in trouble and there's trouble coming. I mean, let me ask you this, Farida. What blockbuster is out this summer?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I can't think of it because I feel like everything is like I just saw an ad for
I'll answer
Twister.
your question. There is none. Last year
was a great summer though. Last year was awesome. We had Barbie and we had
right.
but this year, you're right.
Just in 1 year, look at the dramatic shift. Look at the dramatic shift of not having who's talking about a blockbuster anymore? Nobody's like, I'm gonna go out. Like, maybe like somebody was mentioning Doom. I'm like, I swear to God, if you didn't mention Doom to me, I would have never even thought of it. I wouldn't even know.
No. So they're bringing back, and the other thing is that this is another topic for another time, but like they're bringing back all these older tent poles and they're redoing it, like Twister. There's not any new ideas. They're the old ideas from like 20 years ago, and they're bringing them back this year. Yeah. And
because they want guaranteed money, right? They want a guaranteed formula. They're like, look, we're not taking chances on new concepts anymore. We got to go back to the formulas that work. And nobody cares. Are you going to go watch Twister? When I saw the Twister, I wanted to vomit. And I was like, I don't want to see this shit. The first one was awesome. Why are you doing this?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I feel the same way about certain TV shows. I want to see newer material because I know there's incredible talent out there. There's people who are creating amazing scripts, amazing TV show ideas. And yeah, that is definitely.
Not just that. Now the content's global, right? You can watch great, content coming out of Hong Kong, great content coming out of
Turkey has amazing. I just learned about Turkey. I was sleeping under a rock forever. And I had a friend, she's like, Turkish television produces the most dramas and films outside of America. And I Googled the statistics. I was like, I knew they were big in other regions of Asia and South Asia. I personally have never really watched any Turkish films or that. But then she's like, sent me some and I watched them. I was like, wow, their production value is very equal, if not in some areas better than Hollywood.
Yep.
And I'm like, have Americans caught on to Turkish television and networks? Because
we live in amazing work. No, because somehow we have sold ourselves this nonsensical lie that we're somehow the greatest film industry in the world. We are not. I'm sorry. There are Turkish, the Turkish film industry and TV industry is doing phenomenally well, and I'm not knocking all of everything that Hollywood has done and achieved. Of course. What I'm saying, I'm just saying we need to get our head out of our ass a little bit to be like, there are amazing, brilliant, like look at all the amazing new talent coming out of India. It's phenomenal. Phenomenal. Like, my goodness, you go watch content that's coming out of like the rest. I mean, Saudi Arabia is stepping up their game. I mean, holy shit, man. Like, this is good. I'm excited about this. I wanna see these silos lifted. I want to be able to watch amazing content like coming out of Thailand, because they have another film industry that they're building out over there. I want to be able to watch these.
South Africa too has an amazing film community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Mona, like I'm literally like, I feel like we need a second session for your podcast, because I feel like, or you need to come out with like a lecture series and where we can come and listen and learn about Web3. Tell us about these events that are coming up. The Pre-Accelerator presents Web3. What is it all about?
So the reason I came up with Web3 is a joke about a year and a half ago. By the way, didn't know shit about it and just kind of jumped into it because that's kind of how I do things. I'm just like, let's just dive into it. What could possibly happen? The Pre-Accelerator presents Web3 is a Joke, Crypto Comedy Roast. So Web3 is a Joke was started with the idea of bridging the gap between Web3 and comedy. And what was happening is that I was going to a lot of these, events that are crypto related and AI related. And there were just a lot of nerds, like a lot of annoying, brilliant nerds. And I was like, man, this is like kind of boring. They just kind of all talk about technical stuff. And I was like, oh, I can make this a lot funner. I can bring out amazing comedians. So we turned into this crypto roast and Web3 roast. So that's what we do. And, first year we launched with about 3 events. First year we actually even got accepted at Bitcoin Miami, which was huge. So I don't know if you heard, but Bitcoin Nashville is happening the week of July 25th. And good old Donnie is going to be there. Donald Trump, he's going to be speaking.
Oh, okay.
He's grifting. He's grifting real hard. He's calling himself to be a Bitcoin president. I'm like, bitch, you don't even know what Bitcoin is. Like, what are you grifting, bro? Like, I'm a Bitcoin president. I'm like, you didn't even fucking know what Bitcoin was. Like, what? What are you Anyways, grifting, straight up grifting. But that's how Web3's Joke came into existence. So we have this event. We're launching our monthly events.
Okay.
First year we launched with 3 events and sold out all those events. And this year we quadrupled in size. So we are doing 12 events around the world. So the other half, September on, I'm just going to be traveling overseas a great deal. So we already did San Francisco, San Diego. We did LA, Venice. We had last event was completely sold out. The mayor of Santa Monica came. The Chamber of Commerce came. That was amazing. And now we're launching our monthly events because I'm in LA and I'm, Web3 is all about community. So our next event is on Thursday, July 25th. At the 3rd Street Promenade. You can check us out at web3isajoke.io, which is the number 3, and you'll see our event there and all our upcoming events. And that's kind of what we'll do.
And it's open to all. It's a comedy show.
It's comedy. It's free. It's open to everyone. Go reserve your free tickets. I have very limited seating, so please go and reserve your ticket.
Fabulous, Mona. And we're going to definitely share all that information on our website. I feel like we probably need another hour with you, but this is a final segment. I've learned so much just in this episode, so I really appreciate that. And I know our audience definitely will take heed to all your warnings about Web3 AI coming to take our jobs, which is
you know what it is, Farida? I was saying all this stuff and I was like, I want to hear the same interview 5 or even 10 years from now and see the accuracy of the stuff that's coming out of my mouth.
I mean, foresight, if you're a futurist, this is true. And people have called it before. Everyone's like, you're delusional, you're crazy. But here we are, right? Here we are. So, no. Okay. So, Mona, I wanted to ask, is there any collaborations you wish to do in the near future? Any people you want to work with? What kind of shows?
I want to work with as many brilliant comedians as I possibly can, from established to the new ones. I want to work with them all. I can't talk about it a lot, but I am building my own platform, and it is for my comedians. That's who it's for. It's for my comedy family.
I love that. Well, definitely keep us informed because I want to come out and learn more about this, and I'm very intrigued by all the great stuff that you're doing.
Thank you.
Also, okay, this is our last segment. It's very short. It's called the Listen, Reflect, and Connect. So I'm going to ask you 3 deep dive questions. You're welcome to answer all of them or one of them or whatever you feel like it, and then we'll say our goodbyes.
All right.
So, Mona, when and where do you think you have been misrepresented or misunderstood?
When and where? Is that it?
Mm-hmm. When and where do you think you have been misrepresented or misunderstood?
I feel like I've been misunderstood most of my life. I don't think I've ever been understood by my family, just to start with. I think I get misunderstood, and I think I definitely kind of question myself sometimes. I'm a New Yorker. I grew up in New York. I tend to be very direct. LA people don't like directness. They find it rude, find it obnoxious, or they just altogether try to avoid you. So I think I've definitely run into a great deal of that, where I'm just like, what? I wasn't rude. I was just honest about how I felt about it. And then you see people avoiding you or don't talk to you or find you obnoxious somehow. And And you know what? That's fine with me. It's fine. I don't worry about those people. I'm only concerned about my tribe. If you want to talk behind my back, that's exactly where you belong, behind me. So, you can go and say whatever you want. I don't give a shit.
100%. I mean, what you see is what you get. And I think when you are blunt, you're truthful. And I think people who are so used to not feeling authentic or empowered enough to speak their truth, they don't know how to respond to people being authentic. You know what I mean? If you're someone, especially yourself, Mona, like you've really put your life out there and you're really inspiring and empowering, and you've really transmuted a lot of your adversity into an amazing, amazing career for yourself. And it's not an easy thing. I think you deserve those flowers and that. And I think, and you are getting them. And I see that. And I see there's a bright future ahead of you as well. But I think it takes a level of fearlessness to do what you're doing. And I think people who are not there yet, who are not authentic, who are not leaning into their true self, it's hard for them to respond to that. So
Yes.
I think I take that as a compliment. It's like, it's good riddance.
That's very kind of you. I'll make two comments. Okay.
Yes.
So I think what happens with a lot of people where they feel that they can't be their authentic self, that's a certain trauma response. I feel like they possibly maybe grew up in a home where being authentic meant getting punished or being rejected or not being loved. And I feel like they kind of grew up with this insecurity that if they're their authentic self, then if people find out who they truly are, then they won't be loved or admired. And that's a really sad place because you're literally are a stranger to yourself all your life. And I would rather be connected to myself and be a stranger to people who don't like me than, try to people please people. And don't get me wrong, I have been there for a very long time. I just don't care about that anymore. I think I'm too old for it. I just, I think that's one thing. And the second thing is, I honestly, I mean this with, I mean this with all sincerity. I do not see myself as fearless at all. I am not fearless. I think if you really ask me, most of the things that I've done in my life that, I've gotten some accolades for, I did them because I was afraid, but I did them anyways.
Wow. Yeah.
I did them anyways, right? I was absolutely terrified of launching Web3 as a joke, but I did it anyway. Because I was just like, I cannot constantly operate out of fear. I cannot let fear run ahead of me. I am not denying my fear. I am just simply saying that you cannot walk ahead of me or even walk next to me. I need you to walk behind me. So, it's not that I don't get anxiety and I don't get fearful. Of course I do. I'm human, of course I do. But I think when you kind of go forward, even regardless of your fears, you have to kind of look back and ask yourself, like, look, I did X, Y, and Z and I was afraid and I did it anyways and I was successful at it. So you have like enough evidence to keep moving forward regardless.
No, well said. And you should write a book. You should write a book and then hire me as one of your producers to adapt it.
I should start a podcast.
And yeah, write a book, hire me as a producer to adapt it into a Web3 feature film. No. Anyways, second question. Where do you see yourself in the next decade, Mona? What is the future of Mona? What is she doing?
On a yacht in Ibiza. I see myself, I really see a massive future for myself in the Web3 space. I really do. I really see, with the companies that I want to build and the way I want to build them, I really see a very bright future for where the industry is headed and what is it that I'm bringing to it, and the kind of just turning and the changing tides, I guess. I also see myself with a harem of men that I'm going to name Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And they're not all going to be used for their bodies. One's going to be used to vacuuming and the other one's going to be used for dishes. One's just going to be there just to tell me how amazing I am every day. But like, you're amazing. Like, oh my God. One's just there to hold my hand when we walk down the street. The other one is just for cuddles when I'm sitting on the couch. The other one's for trash. And the last one is really, to take care of mama's needs.
So, okay, well, that will happen. And then we'll have you back, you and your harem back to interview you. I would love to.
I'm sure somebody's going to listen to this and like, Mona's such a hoe.
But Mona, do you want to get married? Is that a goal for you in the
I
future, in
was,
your future?
I mean, look, I got married pretty young and I got divorced pretty young. I would like to find a life partner. And if
Mhm.
we get married, then we get married. I definitely certainly don't want children of my own. That's never been a kind of goal of mine. Given with all the kind of fucked up trauma I grew up with, I wasn't going to pass that on to some beautiful, pristine mind. I wasn't going to make that mistake. So I would maybe adopt some kids, maybe. And that's only because I feel pretty healed to be able to not pass my fucked up shit on to them. But yeah, I mean, that's what I would
Oh,
do. Yeah.
no, like I said, I spoke to a friend before I interviewed you. I was telling her that I was interviewing you, and she only had kind things to say about you. So, like, you're a beautiful person inside out,
Thank you,
Mona.
my friend. So are you. Thank you.
I think you speak a lot of wisdom, and I think that's a testimony to everything you've been through. You're able to take that and build such a beautiful, empowering, and wonderful life, and you're able to share that with so many people. I think that's a big deal and it's a huge accomplishment. Not everybody does that, and it's not easy, and you're doing it. And I'm sure you've had your challenges, but I see you as a success, and it's very inspiring what you're
Thanks, Farida.
doing.
I just want to know, can I have your number so whenever I feel like crap, I
You
can
have
give
my
you a call?
numbers in my yeah.
Farida, I feel like crap. Say sweet nothings in my
No,
ear.
but it's true, Mona. It's true. You know, there's just so few of us South Asian women and women in general on this in this industry in this space. It takes a lot of resiliency and guts. And like one of the things me and my friend Samantha, who's the producers on this podcast, we really talk about. We don't know people's origin stories. You know what I mean? People go through life, you just assume it's easy for them. You just make assumptions. And it's not until you have moments like this and you learn, like, oh, this person is such a positive, bright light, and you had no idea what they went through.
Yeah,
And it
absolutely.
puts it in perspective, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, I appreciate that. And I appreciate meeting people that I'm like, they're on the other side of that and they made something amazing out of their quote trauma, their adversity, whatever it was. Because we're all dealt challenging cards. We just don't know what they are, right?
That's
And I
right.
feel like when you're this vulnerable and you're sharing that, there's probably someone else who's listening to this, hopefully, and they feel empowered and they feel like, okay, I mean, you're breathing life into that. And I think that's the beautiful part about storytelling, whether you're using comedy or film or even a podcast, any form of storytelling, I find it to be very healing for myself. And also, great art comes from that. You know, there's got to be contrast. And comedy is art to me too, because a lot of those jokes, a lot of that, I see people see themselves in it. So I do think more respect to the creators, right? And hopefully we'll dominate the Web3 space. But last question, Mona, what do you think the world needs more of?
Right now, where we stand,
Mm-hmm.
that's a tough one. We are right now witnessing an ongoing genocide in Gaza. We are, I think, truly, to me, this is not a battle of religions or or faith. To me, this is a battle of truly just good and evil. Like that's all it is to me. That's on a more on a more like aerial shot. Because as a comedian, I always look at the aerial shot of things. Like what if you just pan out? I feel like the world needs more of, I don't want to say love because it is kind of cheesy. And yes, love does play a significant role in that. I just feel like people need to not be so fucking extreme. I think the centrists and the moderates and the sensible people are being silenced. And I think those are truly the people that help move the world forward. So I think we need more sensible and moderate people with good hearts who hold good intentions for all of humanity, not just for a particular race or a religion or a culture. Those people need to step up and be given the mic, and everybody else needs to sit down.
Yeah. No, it is a difficult time. You said it. Well, this was an amazing time with you, Mona. I really appreciate all your wonderful, brilliant insight. Just learned so much, and I know our audience will learn as much. Thank you, Mona, for sharing With us today on the Slow Dive, we will be following your intrepid journey and looking forward to your Netflix special, maybe a Web3 special with Netflix, who knows, God willing. I'm going to tell folks to visit monashaikh.com, and that's Mona Shaikh, SHAIKH.com, to learn more about how to get in touch with you and what you're all doing. Anything you like to say before we say?
Yes. First of all, thank you so much for having me. This was very nice. I'm glad you reached out to me on LinkedIn. I'm glad I read my message. And, this is, it's lovely. I give you a ton of kudos. Being an independent producer is a really tough gig. You are out there hustling on your own and trying to make projects happen. And, you've been through your own struggles to be the woman that you are today. You had mentioned briefly that you went through 7 years of a lot of, struggle that you were going through. I don't know what that struggle was, but I'm sure it was painful, but it also made you the woman that you are today. And to be able to, have faith in yourself to launch this podcast and be out there, shooting and doing all this amazing work. I mean, a lot of people would hunker down or would be scared or would break down and say, well, I'm not going to pursue this because of whatever my challenges are. But you don't. You have.
Oh, you're sweet too, Mona. I think, that's, thank you for saying that. But I honestly, I think people say sisterhood, but really, truly, I find a lot of comfort in meeting women who are doing the impossible. And as I've gotten older, I have found community in very empowered women who have let their mask go, who are living their authentic life. Yep. They don't let the shame or their past trauma or anything judge their past judgments or people, because people always try to do that, and just live from an authentic place. And I feel like once you take those steps, you meet more people like that, and that I think is like really building deep, meaningful connections, whether it's in business, in art, or in just friendship. The truer you are to yourself, like you said earlier, you reflect that. So the more true you are, you're going to meet more true people. Right? So I've noticed that in my life.
I mean, we're all just energy, right? You're just energy. That's all you're doing. You're just vibrating on a different level, and that's what you're attracting. That's all.
And some people just fall off. And so it's like,
it's a gift. You take that gift. It's a total gift. When people drop off, I'm like, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's okay. We all have a lot to learn when we're all students, right? Well, thank you. I'm gonna thank you again.
Thank you, Farida.
Yes, till next time, friends. I am Farida. This is The Slow Dive. Let's make an impact, one episode